Welcome back. How are you, Sami?
Good morning, good afternoon, depending what your audience is. I'm doing very well, and I'm very happy to be back.
Thank you. We're happy to have you. So, I wanted to jump in with the following thoughts. Last week, you were talking about luck, and that basically what it comes down to, whether we believe it spiritually or whatever, but that every survivor made it through based on luck, circumstances that made it come out this way. And in your situation, you attributed three things you mentioned, and I wanted to discuss them. Number one, you mentioned the fact that you were never separated from your parents. I would like to know how that's possible. And number two, you said that because there were experiments done on you, this helped your ability to survive. I'd like to understand what that means. And number three, you said that there was this German lady, there was a connection with the SS guards, and somehow she came into your life and she saved you, she gave you milk and all of this. I'd like to know how, where did she come from? Why did she choose you? So I think I have enough questions here for you to work with.
Okay, well, what happened is that to re-emphasize, we were not deported by the Germans. We were deported by the Romanians in an area that in 1941 was occupied by the Romanians. The Romanian troops were behind the German troops when they attacked the former Soviet Union on June 22nd, 1941. And they were also behind the Einsatzgruppen, the special killing groups. Uh, the area that was occupied by the Romanians was called Transnistria. It still exists today. Very few people know about it. And the labor camp was in that particular area. Okay. So it was a labor camp, so we were not separated. Uh, they didn't have the gas chambers over there. Uh, so normally I would not survive. Uh, but they found use, okay, for me by doing medical experiments. And that saved my life. After they finished with the medical experiments, okay, they let things happen, and for me to die slowly through attrition. And it would have been either disease or hunger. Okay, so came a stage that I was dying of starvation. So obviously, there are physical signs: big head, small stomach, small feet. And not far away from the camp, there was a farm owned by Germans. And the German woman brought food to the guards in the SS. And so obviously she had access to the camp. She could go wherever she wanted. And when came the stage that the physical sign showed that I am dying of starvation, she had compassion for a young kid, a baby, uh, and decided to give me milk. A lot of people did uh, heroic things. Uh, you never know how you will react in any particular situation. But this particular woman, because she had the compassion, she did the right thing for the right reason. Uh, but uh, what was so special about her is not that she decided to give me milk, because it's relatively easy to make a decision that affects only your life. her decision affected the life of her entire family. And so obviously, she is what we call the righteous among the nations. I do not know her name. I do not know what happened to her. So obviously, I was not able to honor her personally, okay, or posthumously. But when I was in Israel giving testimony at Yad Vashem, next to the museum, there is a garden honoring 27,000 non-Jewish people that saved Jews. And they're called the righteous among the nation. And
Right.
I saw a marker honoring the unknown righteous among the nations. And that made me very happy because indirectly, with other people, she has been recognized.
Amazing. Wow. And the beautiful thing is that God sorts it out. Sometimes when we don't know the names of something, at least we know God, He's aware and He's taking care of her up in heaven.
Well, I am a firm believer in people call it different things, but there is something more than us as an individuals. Some people, like myself, they call it God. They have other things spiritually, but people that believed in God, a number of them did survive because when you have faith, you can accept easier certain traumas or difficulties that befell in your life.
Understood. So this explains the woman, although why you? Or was there not such a large number amount of people there, not so many people being experimented in that environment?
You probably saw other kids, but in my particular case, she saw the physical signs that I'm dying of starvation. But that's an educated guess. I'm not going to speculate on something that I don't know.
Right.
I want to be as truthful as possible, but I don't want to embellish things or to make assumptions that may not be true.
Understood. Okay, so that answers the one of the questions about this lady. It also answers about the torture, which you speak so casually about. Um, I think that this is another piece we were talking last week about, that you can't live in a different time and understand what was going on over there. I think another big piece of it, which I want to discuss more in another um, conversation, is this hunger. You were specifically tortured with hunger, but in general, I think that there was a fundamental underlying terrible torture, regardless of what people were going through in other ways. There was a lot of hunger. Yes?
But you have to understand something because I was so young. Okay, I have no memories of that period of time. As a Holocaust survivor, I cannot understand the inhumanity of man towards man. So I can talk in general things, but without being very specific what hunger does to you. The only example that I heard from other people, and I know, and I've seen pictures, and you have seen pictures, is that somebody that, like you, if you were lucky and survived, by the end of the war, you probably weighed 65, 70 pounds. Okay, it was walking skeletons. It's difficult to imagine, okay, what people went through.
Yeah.
The thing that I have a difficult time understanding, we're talking about faith. Uh, as you know, the holiest day for Jewish people is Yom Kippur. And although they were starving, the religious Jewish people, okay, fasted on Yom Kippur.
Amazing.
So, so this is another form of uh, example of resistance, the religious resistance. There was the humanitarian, there was the cultural, educational. There were many, many forms of resistance which people think of only as the armed resistance. But there are many ways that you, as an individual, can resist and do what you can against the injustice and inhumanity.
Right. Now, what about your parents? You said, I know that you're very deliberate in being clear that there's three types of camps. The average person, when we think from our generation, we think of the concentration camps, but you were very, very clear that there's three types of camps. Each one had its own function, and I guess the experiences were different. And well, you also
But
mentioned that was
they were also different from camp to camp.
right. That's what I was going to say. Depending on how lucky you got, who the commandant was, what the SS guards were like, every little detail affected a person's life in an extreme way.
Right.
So, with this in mind,
By the way, there was another group of people recognized as Holocaust survivors, not
mhm,
the ones that were specifically in one of the camps. But in 1991, they are called the hidden children, people saved by strangers, lived in the sewer and the forest, and did whatever they did to be able to survive. So,
right,
so there are actually three types of camps and the hidden children.
understood. So, can you explain a little clearer how it was that you were able to not be separated from your parents? Maybe it'll give an understanding of how the camps worked that you were in.
I It's a question that I have never asked. It's something that I'm attributing to luck. Uh, okay, uh, but one of the reasons, and that is an educated guess, one of the reasons is because they decided to do medical experiments on me.
Hmm,
So
understood.
obviously, when they did the medical experiments, they took me somewhere else. But after that, they returned me to my parents. But it's an educated guess. My parents did not talk about it in details, and I found out about it only when I was age of 31.
Really?
Right.
Wow. There's something else that I keep thinking about. I know this sounds ridiculous, but a lot of our references we get from the movies. And there's a famous scene in the Pianist, with Adrian Brody. You ever seen? You saw it?
Yes. I
So
don't remember
that
all the details. Yes, what I saw.
right. So there was a scene where there was this really, really brilliant German and a really, really brilliant Jew, and they had a relationship. They were friends. They would ask each other questions, and the German was very impressed by the wisdom of this older man, this Jew. And it got to the point as things got worse, as the war got worse and worse, and he was in some kind of internment camp. It was very clear he was behind a fence and he was haggard, hungry. He was suffering, and they were pulling them along on some kind of line. And the German comes running up to him by the fence, and as a viewer of the movie, you think this German's going to get involved. He's going to tell them, oh, this guy's very smart. You got to save him. Instead, he asks him a question. He asks him some kind of intelligent, like mathematical or scientific question as the guy's going through his hell. Just he wanted to quickly get one more piece of information. And the point of this piece of the movie was that you speak of Germans that were and Polish and others, you speak of people that were purely compassionate. But then there seems to be this subcategory of people that appreciated the minds of specific Jews, but were like oblivious or were not sensitive to the overall environment of what they were going through, almost like naive. Is this something that's embellished for the movie? Is this something this is a realistic um, subcategory that some of the Germans were not that bad, but they weren't that good?
Well, there is no such thing as 100% good, 100% bad. Okay, we all of us have both sides. Okay, it depends, on each individual. It depends under which circumstances one or the other side will prevail. But we have to understand that most of the atrocities were done by highly skilled and highly intellectual professional people. The camps were built by engineers. The experiments were made by doctors. Babies were killed by nurses. I mean, these are not regular people. Okay, yes, regular people, gave up the Jews and everything else for various reasons. Okay, because their lives were not that easy either. Okay, uh, I'm not going to judge anybody that did help or did not help and why they did it or did not do it. I am not in that position, and the only way that you can understand is you are caught in that situation, and you have to decide which way you will go. Uh, so I don't like to make a blank statements. Okay, to generalize things. Yes, some of the most intelligent people, okay, you take, for instance, Dr. Mengele, okay, he was a highly intelligent person. Most of the people, for instance, the ones that murdered kids. I'll give you an example that I heard of. Okay, when you do all of the things that was done in the camps, that affects you. And there has to be a form of release. Okay, and I can give an example of people. Okay, what they used to do. They used to take babies, go to the third or fourth floor of the building, whatever it was. Okay, throw the building out, the baby, and then went into his room, listened to Beethoven, Mozart, okay, and had dinner. It's beyond comprehension. They were, I would say, they were, in a certain way, they were detached because they did it so often that after a while it just became the norm. I think the first time is really effective. Okay, and after that, slowly you keep doing it. And this is what's happening with propaganda. The first time when it happens, it's a shocker. But if it's kept repeating and repeating and repeating, people get desensitized. And after that, they accept that it's the new norm.
Makes sense.
And we have to understand that this is not that people suddenly became criminals. It was a process. And this is what propaganda does, brainwashing, and most importantly, ideology. So a lot of the people believed, okay, that the Jews, because of the propaganda, that they are a danger not only to Germany, but to the world.
Understood. Sami, it is always a pleasure speaking to you. I'm looking forward to continuing next week. Thank you again.
I cannot give you a couple of examples that lead to it, but this is what I'm trying to say. What I try to do is to educate the next generation. We have to learn that things did not happen in a vacuum. There is always an action and reaction. Okay, if somebody hits you, let me give an example. It's not suddenly. Nobody has the intention to come and to say, okay, I'm going to hit you. Okay, something happened. Okay, you gave him a bad look. You said something, you didn't smile, you didn't answer. Something triggered, okay, for that person to do. So we also have to look at ourselves, what we did. In what we are talking about, World War II, a lot of the things were out of the control, and that people could not do a lot of the things, but that was indoctrination and brainwashing, and that's what's happening in this country today and in the world, and we have to stand up to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Sami. I appreciate
Okay.
your time.
You are not, you are still under the weather because you
Oh,
are
yeah.
not, okay, you don't have the spunk like you had in the beginning.
No, no, I'm also just I'm getting pulled more and more into this story, you know. You said it affects everybody. It affects the viewer also.
Right.
It's a deep story to swim into.
Very good. Okay, so hopefully your audience will learn from it. And I just want to say that each person individually, not only collectively, but individually, each person can make a difference in this world and make this world a
Amen.
little bit better.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, see you next week.